ऑफ कैसे हो गया ये अपने आप? एक मिनट रुकना।
Thank you all for coming for this Laravel Daily Meetup of September chapter, and it's been a pleasure to have you all. So before moving on to the meetup, we would like to thank our sponsors GitHub and CodeInnovers for sponsoring this meetup and making it a success. Okay. So the very first speaker I would like to call on Mr. Ashish from Microsoft, and he's going to speak on topic on how chatbots are revolutionizing the e-commerce sector. So Ashish, please.
Thank you everyone, and special thanks to Webkul for me to have this opportunity to share whatever I am learning from the industry, and then helping contribute back to the industry whatever we are learning. So definitely, I mean, since the inception of technology, the growth in the humankind is increasing at much faster speed, and henceforth the newer transitions are coming in. We have seen that e-commerce is in our lives from last probably 2 decades, and the transition in the way like people are communicating to digital touch points for making their purchases, that has significantly changed over the years. So we have moved from simply using the websites, then consumers started consuming e-commerce on mobile apps, and then they moved on to marketplaces. So if I talk about sellers, so they also have their own way of transiting from there being an offline seller to then moving to having their own websites and then selling from websites. They got their own mobile apps also, and finally they found a hub in marketplaces like Amazon and Flipkart, where they go and then sell. So what is next now? So definitely this transition will never stop, but what is happening latest in the market is what I'm going to talk today, and this is about WhatsApp commerce. So, and that too, one more thing which I want to actually highlight here is that we being consumers or as humans would always enjoy shopping when we got the opportunity to get a support from somebody while we make shopping. So for example, now you step into a store and you find that it is definitely carrying a lot of inventories there, but there is no one to attend you. So, I mean, you definitely do not feel like shopping there. You want somebody to probably give you more information, talk more about the inventories, help you exactly, search what you're looking for. So, for example, you walk into a store and looking for a toothpaste, and then the store offers you 1,000 inventories saying that I'm sure there is a toothpaste line somewhere in the store, but then you have to search it on your own. I mean, that's not the way I would actually like to be a consumer, or I would like to shop. But then over a period of time, as malls grew up, and then the e-commerce and website and mobile app marketplaces came in, we got immune to our, this problem. We never thought like, oh, there is nobody who's going to take me through the store and let me know where is what, and I can bring the item of my choice. This is where artificial intelligence has come into scene. So artificial intelligence is a way where we come back to a way to give the better experience of shopping to the customers. So now amalgamation of WhatsApp and amalgamation of the hand-holding is like AI-enabled shopping on WhatsApp. So I'll be talking more about that. So by the way, like if I talk to the sellers in the room, have you ever felt a problem like this, that you have got a brand, but then people forget about your website, or like you have a mobile app of yours, but then people use it just like napkin. They use it and then they throw it out after they're done with the shopping. And then it becomes really difficult for you to catch hold of the same client once again. The loyalty of the customer is a question. Or like you're paying tremendous amount of money or commissions to marketplaces, but then you're not getting the customer as your own intellectual property. Or like people contact you during the odd hours and you fail to convert them into business because none of your support team members is available at that time to get the customer converted into a real business. Or maybe your cost of acquiring a customer is very high, and then cost of doing the customer support to the achieved customers is still higher. If you have faced such problems, or like retaining the manpower is costlier, and then if you bring a new manpower, then training him is again a costly affair. So if you're facing these kind of problems, so definitely we have to understand why are you facing these problems. That is where we need to actually probably will find a solution there. So first thing first, the latest generation buyer is digital. He is extraordinarily confident. He doesn't want anybody to help him. He would just, he believes in messaging. He prefers to be online 24/7 and needs things on demand. He doesn't want to wait. And then if I talk about the latest way of consuming the content by the consumers, irrespective of their age. So if you go to shop, you go to Flipkart, Amazon, Jabang, Mahindra. If you want to watch television, you go to Netflix and all the other OTTs. If you want to hire a cab or move on, you book Olas and Ubers. And if you want to listen music, you go to Spotify. So, day in, day out, you're consuming a lot of content only on the internet. So that's where your customer is. And he's self-capable, and his comfort zone is that whenever he needs it, he wants it. He doesn't want to wait for it. He's impatient for that sake. Now, in such a scenario, if you are operating in the same traditional way, with the fact that since you have got a website or a mobile app, and that's it, now the duty is done on the seller's part, then I'm sorry, you're wrong. You have to, because your customer is surfing, and whosoever is in front of his eyes at that time, he will make shopping there, and he's not your loyal customer. Out of sight, out of mind is a concept. So if you're not in front of your customers continuously, regularly, so you cannot capture the deal, you cannot close the deal with the customers. And the other factors, so this was like the behavioral change in the consumption or the consumers, and on the other side, the lack of adoption of technologies amongst the sellers, and the other problem with generally the sellers or businessmen is that they're lethargic, they're followers, they're not leaders. They just sit on the fence and watch like, oh, what's going on? Let's just see. If somebody has adopted a new technology, will he really be benefited? If he fails, they enjoy, okay, somebody failed. But if he makes a business out of it, then they feel, oh, we got late. We should have done it earlier. So that's where the problem is. You have to actually act like leader, not just like a follower. And these, now if you will actually correct all these things, that is where the solution of the problems I was talking about, these problems, and why are those problems occurring? Because of these behaviors of market change and the seller's attitude. And what is the solution then? The solution is to be present where your customer is. Now, what does that require? That requires more of automation. Adopt technology of future like a leader, not like a follower. Now, where am I going to talk more? What is this technology I'm actually referring to in today's seminar is the chatbot. So what exactly a chatbot is? It's an intelligent piece of software which sits inside any digital touch point where your customer is, and then handhold the users to let them shop. So now what does that enable? Chatbots are present 24/7 for pre-sales and post-sales. The chatbots can communicate in more than 100 languages. They bring your cost of acquiring a customer significantly down. They're consistent and persistent. They never leave you. Once they're on board, they work 365 days. They never take any leaves. They never resign. And they can do both pre-sales and post-sales. And on top of all that, technology has brought a factor of human touch also, where the combination of a chatbot and a human can actually serve your customer. And what is the future of chatbots? Chatbots will actually be used for pre-sales, post-sales, brand awareness, promotion, every damn thing where the communication is required, and communication is required on a digital touch point. That's what chatbots are going to revolutionize. And by the way, like before I move on to the real meat of the whole conversation, what is not a chatbot is also important to understand. A utility which is just does a job of matching the keywords with each other and then giving you an answer is not a chatbot. Then better have FAQs page on your website. Then second is like sending promotional messages. So I met a person actually who said that, oh, I got this WhatsApp solution already with me, damn. I can just send 10,000 messages and then I can cover the whole world. So my next question immediately after that was like, if you send 10,000 messages to your possible consumers, and out of those 10,000, say for example 5,000 reply back saying that, hey, I'm very interested in your brand, can you please tell me more information? Do you have the big team to answer those 5,000 people just in one single day? That's where the chatbots are actually bringing value. And if you're being communicated by some brand saying that, अरे आपको तो सिर्फ WhatsApp messaging ही चाहिए वो तो मैं दे दूँगा, then you're not actually buying the technology. You're buying a bubble. And then Alexas and Google Home Minis, I've seen people talking that, oh, you're talking about chatbots, I've got one. Strange. What is that? He says, I've got Alexa at my home. So, by the way, Alexa is not a chatbot. You talk to Alexa, you ask like, what does Webkul offer? Alexa will not tell you that. But if you will ask Alexa, what is the temperature in London right now? Alexa will tell you that. So, chatbots are made specifically to businesses. They talk business. They don't tell you temperature in London, but they will tell you what does Webkul do. That's where, you have to actually get the real difference between Alexa and a chatbot. So, what is a digital touch point? So, any such interface where your customer can reach out to your brand and can talk to your brand in terms of anything like for buying something or maybe for seeking support or kind of those things. So that's where the digital touch point exists, and it can be a website, it can be a mobile app, it can be even emails, SMSs, whatever. What is the most common digital touch point right now existing for the consumers globally? It is WhatsApp, without any doubt at all on that. Within India itself, this slide is a little older, within India itself, we have got 50 crore users using WhatsApp day in, day out. I've got a lot of people in this room right now, and I'm sure there is not even a single person who doesn't have WhatsApp installed in his mobile. And the one who has installed it probably 3 years back or 5 years back or maybe 10 years back and has not uninstalled it since then. That is the kind of loyalty which WhatsApp actually brings for customers. A customer for WhatsApp is customer for WhatsApp forever. So if you are present on WhatsApp and selling your repository, your inventory on WhatsApp, that's the game changer. The new era, the new way of doing commerce. You can shop, you can allow shopping on WhatsApp. You can respond to your customers' queries 24/7. You can keep your customers informed about your new products and new offerings. You can interact with your customers and send them updates. So for example, just one single example, you have got a mobile app for yourself and you have got WhatsApp commerce. And this mobile app, for example, enables e-commerce. Okay. So now I wanted to buy a pair of shoes. I bought the shoes and then I'm done. I will uninstall this brand because I'm living the life of 5G. Whenever I need that same thing again, I'll install the app, I'll place an order, and that's it. So for now, why should I keep clutter on my phone? That's how the consumers are thinking. But they never uninstall WhatsApp. Now what does this mean is that if suppose you were fortunate enough to get the eyeballs of your customers through maybe Facebook ads or whatever, and then this person happened to download your mobile app and then made shopping also. After that, he'll uninstall it. Now, you have got a new offer, say on Eid or maybe on Diwali. So where will you send the notification and update to this consumer? You cannot, because he has already uninstalled your app. But he has not uninstalled WhatsApp. Had you done the same thing on WhatsApp, you would always have this freedom to send him notification कि दिवाली के ऊपर हमारे पास नए offers आए. Please have a look at our latest inventory. Or if it is about, say for example, a car servicing company, and they're present on WhatsApp, for example, they can say like, you were just done with monsoon, so I'm sure your car needs a repair. Why don't you come to us? But you cannot tell this if you're not on WhatsApp. So if I just quickly walk you through by possibly some of the use cases. So for example, you put an advertisement flyer into a newspaper with a QR code saying that we have got awesome inventory for you. Please visit us. The person, he scans the QR code, he lands onto your WhatsApp, and from there the journey starts. He says hi, and then you start offering him all the options, whatever you have got. You probably get him registered, or you might like to ask him straight away go for shopping and maybe send him some promotional messages to let him know how can he shop on the platform. If he's done with that, you can ask him the category, what exactly is he looking for. It can be probably a store just on a walking distance from your place, and if he's available on WhatsApp, you can just ask like what are you looking for, and probably you're looking for pets food for your pet. So you just happen to click on the pets food category. Now, believe me, all this is happening on WhatsApp. I'm sure like a lot of consumers have not seen this interface of WhatsApp so far, because this is where the revolution is happening, and this is very new in the market. So being a leader, if you're a leader, adopt it. So you can show your inventory out here. The user can see the product details. He can end up buying the product. He can add it into the cart, and then straight away ends up buying the item. Now this is where the journey started. You captured a new customer. Without any hurdle, he ended up making a sale with you. Next time what you do is, you send him another notification. Now your store has probably got a lot of other inventories also. You got to know that there is a household who has got a pet. And then you send him a notification saying that we have got other inventories also. Why don't you buy toiletries from us? So you can just pitch your toiletries, and then maybe your store who's also selling chips and cool drinks and all those things. So maybe after a month you can pitch that we have got this inventory also. So you're actually continuously, this way you are training your customer that whatever you're looking for, I got that for you. And the most important, the beautiful concept here is that acquiring the same customer on email, on e-commerce website or mobile app or marketplace costs you fortune. But over here, you probably get the same customer back in your pocket in just ₹1. We can discuss those details. But then, for example, yet another use case. So you are probably showing your advertisement on Facebook. Somebody looks at the Facebook ad, instead of engaging this person to download the app and register at your place, at your app, and then showing him the whole inventory, but the girl was actually looking for Maybelline lipstick, and you're saying that we have got ready everything on the store. Now it is up to you to find out that pin out of the whole chaff which I am offering you. So this girl will actually, she will be demotivated to make a purchase there. Contrary to that, you show her an ad on Facebook. Click on that ad, she's already on your store. No download, no registration, no throwing the whole stuff on the face. Just show a minimum inventory of which you're advertising on Facebook, and end up the deal because she saw that advertisement. If she has seen Maybelline in the advertisement, she is not going to talk about maybe Lakme's other products. So that is where you can crack the deal. And the beautiful fact in terms of the digital advertisement is that you can connect it with Facebook and Instagram through stories, marketplace of Facebook, and then the other ways how Facebook and Instagram actually show the advertisements. So this is the whole journey. And the other way for the branch, probably who are manufacturers themselves, they can actually, if suppose I go to a store
Thank you, Ashish, for giving us the talk on the WhatsApp commerce. And yeah, chatbots are really playing a very important role today in the e-commerce industry and generating sales. So next talk, I'm going to invite Mr. Karan from GitHub. He is the International Dev Relation Manager, and he's going to like speak on topic on GitHub Codespaces. So for that, we need some time from you, as we need to connect Karan on Google Meet. Okay, so kindly allow us 5-10 minutes. Okay, thank you. भाई इसमें कनेक्ट है ब्लूटूथ स्पीकर ऑन कर दो।
स्पीकर कौन सा वाला, वो जो रखा?
करो कनेक्ट कर, डायरेक्ट कनेक्ट करता हूँ मेरे पास वो है। ये करना YYJH
microphone mode. किस नाम से है?
अरे साउंड उसकी ले लेगा, मतलब कैसे समझा? समझा नहीं।
इसकी साउंड तो इससे मैच कर देते हैं, इसकी साउंड को यहाँ पर कैच करके
ये तो मतलब हमारी जो वॉइस है वो कैप्चर है उस वाले कैमरे।
किस नाम से? नहीं मिला आपको? कैसे करना है? कहाँ टेस्ट करना है? टेस्टिंग करना है?
Just allow me a minute. इसको कनेक्ट करवाना सर, इसको ज्वाइन। लाइव नहीं हुआ, इसको कनेक्ट यहाँ करो ना, इस पर करवाना
सिस्टम भी खराब।
अच्छा, मैं लिंक भेजूँ? कौन सा व्हाट्सएप है, इस पर भेजूँ?
व्हाट्सएप नहीं है
फिर क्या है?
मुझे बस आपको गूगल मीट का।
हाँ, कहाँ भेजूँ वही पूछ रहा हूँ सर।
क्या हुआ? यहाँ डालना है ना कोड.
लास्ट में है OGDP डैश पूरा YYYJH डैश OGDP डैश OUA.
डैश तो दिया ही नहीं आपने बीच में.
Join.
दोबारा बताना. एक बार रिफ्रेश कर दीजिए. डैश में बताऊंगा.
Okay, YJH
YGH
OGDP
OGDP. हाँ जी सर.
OUA.
ठीक है. हाँ जी सर. जॉइन कर दिया सर. अभी तो
मतलब कनेक्ट करवा रहे हैं.
कनेक्ट करवा रहे हैं सर. वो सिस्टम से कनेक्ट करवा रहे हैं. मतलब उससे प्रोजेक्टर से हो गया.
किसी से लॉगिन करें.
ऐसे याद थोड़ी है सर. ऐसे करूँ.
ठीक है सर.
इसमें 9 मशीन है. 9 मशीन है इसमें.
ठीक है
सर. सौरभ सर की है. बता के नहीं गया. पूछ लो ना.
क्या?
नौ मशीन है.
अरे पूछना क्या है?
इससे कनेक्ट करवा दो ना.
इसी से कनेक्ट कर लो ना.
हाँ वही कर रहे हैं. है 9 मशीन
इसी से कर लो.
है. नई आईपी से कनेक्ट कीजिए. ये दो ना T.
Hi Karan, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
One moment, Kadana.
Yeah.
साउंड इतनी है
आ तो रही है सही
नहीं वहाँ से sound इतनी आ रही है
ये स्पीकर इसको बढ़ा
I'll try to switch on this yeah hello okay साउंड उसका इतनी है
थोड़ा बढ़िया है
Karan, can you please say something? Just testing the sound once. You can hear me fine, right? Okay. Okay, actually the thing is that I'm not connecting the back webcam with this laptop. Okay, so I think you can't see the audience right now. So maybe if you can start with the presentation. Yeah, sure.
Microphone mode. Microphone mode.
Okay, and a container is come up, and then that's what you're going to use. All right. So there's a whole lot of customizations and everything else that can be done in each and every step of this. I'll go into that detail a bit later on. All right. But a few key things really to remember in terms of the details for some of this is. A code space will keep running for 30 minutes after the last activity, all right? So it's not like your server VMs that are there, which runs your app servers or something like that, which is like kind of keep continuously running, because probably you are not continuously developing, like 24 hours, right? So it will keep on running after 30, keep running for 30 minutes after the last activity. So any uncommitted changes will be preserved and you can restart anytime, but essentially after the 30 minutes after the last activity, it shuts down, so that one, it saves on the cost for you, and it also saves on really energy, because you're not really using that code space, right? The second thing is that when you think about activity, file changes from the editor, from your VS Code and things like that are considered activity, and if there is any terminal output, right, that is also considered as activity. So, for example, if you're running like a batch job, which is continuously outputting some logs into, the terminal, or there is some active process that's running, right, which is outputting to the terminal, std out, that is also considered as activities. So, as long as that's going on, the code spaces also will be on. And if you exit the code space without stopping, so you just kind of just close the code space without saying stop, the running processes will kind of keep on continuing until the activity goes on. And lastly, whatever is your name and public email and GitHub underscore token, which is an environment variable as well. And the GitHub credentials are used for the GitOps within CodeSpace. All right, the token is only scoped to the repo, so you don't really have to worry about kind of again configuring Git within the CodeSpace and then adding all of your credentials and everything else. So everything will automatically be available for you within the CodeSpace, and then you can kind of start making whatever changes that you need within the CodeSpace for any of the GitOps. All right. Any questions so far? Saurav, or anyone, if you can let me know if there are any questions. I'm not able to hear or see.
You're good now.
Okay, all right. So I'm going to move on and give you a little bit, info around port forwarding as well before I go into the next thing. So how does the port forwarding really work? All right. So again, showing you with this example. All right. So this is the boundaries. So this is on the cloud where a code space is running, and this is your device. Okay. Now on the code space, say for example, you're using say Bagisto itself, right? And there is like a MySQL database, and it's like a service that's being used for your app, and then there is say the app itself which is there, and then there is the code space infrastructure also brings up an extension host. Okay. And your app will actually be talking to the extension host as well, because the extensions might want to use code from your app and things like that, and then we'll also be talking to your database. All right, of course. And then on your device, on your code editor, if you're using it locally, right, and connecting VS Code, this could be again the VS Code desktop which you're using, which you can directly connect to CodeSpace, or you can use VS Code in the browser. All right, and the extension host, talks to the code editor using the CodeSpace's infrastructure itself, so you don't have to worry where you're installing the code space, where you're installing the extensions, because that's handled by CodeSpaces automatically. But say for example, if the app runs on port 4000, right? Now, if port forwarding were not available, the port 4000 would actually be over here, right, within the code space on the cloud, and you would actually have to go use that from the code space, right, rather than from your device. But what makes this easier is when a port is forwarded, right, you can have that forwarded to your browser itself so that you can actually access it as if it were on localhost. So you can just open up localhost 4000, and this will automatically get forwarded to the code space that's running, and you can use that. All right. So you can essentially define that. Okay, I just want my apps port to be forwarded and not my database port, for example. Or you can say that I want to use my database port and all of the other services and things like that. So essentially, you have the control of really labeling the ports that you want, or which is the ports that you want to forward or not, how you want to control access to the ports. For example, you can make this port essentially almost public as well, such that anyone who has the URL to the code space can go check out whatever is running on that port. All right, or you can say, no, it's private only to me, only I can see it. Or you can say only people within my organization will be able to see it, and things like that, right? So you can almost use it in a way like a staging environment as well, right? Because once you are working on something and then you quickly want to run it through with other stakeholders, instead of deploying and maintaining a separate environment, you can just run whatever is the service within a code space and share that URL with other members and saying that, hey, take a look right from here, which is running on the code space, right? So there's all kinds of such use cases which you can do as well with port forwarding. So again, like I said, Codespaces is currently in beta, and when I say beta, there are certain organizations that are able to access Codespaces and have it enabled. So essentially, there are a few conditions. For example, if you're a member of a GitHub org which has Codespaces enabled and they've set like a spending limit, you'll be able to access Codespaces. Second is if an org owner also has granted access, that everyone within the organization will be able to access Codespaces, then you will be able to access it, and then you can start a Codespace that is tied to a specific repository that is owned by the org that has access. All right, you don't have to worry about this for now. An easy thing is that if you go into your GitHub account and on your user profile, if you check your Codespaces, you will get an idea whether you have Codespaces enabled or not. Okay, so I know that's quite a lot that I've stressed about right now, but let me give you a demo of how this thing works and really looks like. So that will give you a better sense of what all is possible. So I'm gonna stop my screen share for a minute over here as I switch my screens. All right, so bear with me for a minute while you see an infinity mirror, because I'm sharing the same screen that is going to be used. All right, great, that's always fun. Okay, so let me start. Okay, so this is my GitHub account called Not Current. I don't know who this is, but I'm gonna show you what's happening over here. All right. So for this demo, what I've done is I have actually forked the Bagisto repo itself, just to give you an idea of what it looks like. So for Codespaces, if you go into, let me just zoom in, so probably you'll be able to see from far away. I'm going to try to zoom in as much as possible. So for example, if here in the right side, if you can see your code spaces, and if you have code spaces enabled, then you can see some of these things. Otherwise, if not, it's going to take you to the Codespaces landing page itself, all right? So the way that Codespaces work is, for example, now, if I have to get started developing and, kind of contributing to Bagisto, what would be your, general workflow, right? The first thing that you would do is you would, of course, go and then clone and then, go check out how do you set up a development environment and all of those things, right? And kind of make sure that all of these requirements and everything else is met and, kind of all of those things, right? So with Codespaces, it's almost as simple as go into the code tab and then there's local and then there is a Codespaces, all right? There's already a Codespaces that has been running over here, and I can create a Codespaces on the master branch, or I can actually configure and create a Codespace as well. Okay, so this is a quick create, and then if I say configure and create Codespaces, I'll get more options. For example, what's the branch which I want to use? This is the Docker branch is what I created in my fork. But which is the branch which has to be used to check out. What is the region? You can even select the region based on where you're based out of. There's one automatically that gets selected based on your location, and there are multiple machine types as well. That is you can select. Right now, the only one that's available to me is the 4-core one, which has 8 GB RAM and 32 GB storage. Pretty good enough, I think, since I think Bagisto needs at least the 4 GB RAM one, so this works really well. So what I can do is I can just say create Codespace. All right. Now remember, what I told you about how it gets started. When I hit on create Codespace, a VM gets brought up by GitHub itself, and then the image. There's a default image that will be available for Codespaces if you don't specify one. It brings up a container using that image, and VS Code gets launched right here in the browser. I did not open my own local VS Code instance, and there I have everything up and running. All right. So this is my complete VM that's available. So you can see there's a whole lot of options from VS Code as well. I can sync to other devices, and then I can really do whatever I want, with the VS Code. I get a terminal and then, do whatever is needed, all right? So what this does, again, like how I said, is this uses the default image that Codespaces ships with. But for example, if the maintainer or the creator of a project has defined that, okay, as soon as a Codespace is created, I want the whole development environment to be ready, then some of those things have to be configured by the project. That is when things will be ready. All right. So I'm gonna just start a new. I'm just gonna go back to this terminal. For example, I'm thinking that maybe the first things that needs to be done is ensuring that all of these requirements and everything else are fulfilled. Right. So I would have to essentially go do a whole lot of those things. So sorry folks, I couldn't find a development environment setup documentation over here. So I'm not sure, I'm guessing all of these have to be done manually. There's no script for it. But what I do know is that as a part of the default image, Composer is already available, all right? So I can actually, use a Composer create project itself to get things up and running. So this comes, the base image comes with a whole lot of runtimes and tools that are already available. I'm not sure if PHP is. There is, PHP 8 also that comes along with, the base image, but you can actually configure whatever is needed and then kind of really use however you want it. All right. So let me show you, one other example that's not, honestly like PHP related, but give you an example of, say, how something like Rails does it, all right? So when I spoke about the customizable environments, right? So I want to give you an idea a little bit about, say how Rails would do it. So let me go into, say, Rails/Rails, all right? So, so here, so the Rails framework has, customizable code space. So there is a folder called as dev container, and essentially you can have a dev container.json which defines all of the customizations that are possible. So for example, you can build the image. When I say image, this is the development environment image, not the release image. So you can build whatever is needed for the development environment from a Docker file that is there, and then kind of say that, okay, once the image comes up, boot up and do whatever is needed. All right. So if you go into their scripts, you can see that this is the Docker file. So they use a base Ruby image that's a part of provided by Codespaces itself, and then they do all of the things that's required to actually bring up the development environment, install MariaDB, install Postgres, Redis, Memcached, whatever is required, and kind of do all of those configuration for you, so you don't really have to run all of these things when you bring up a code space, all right? And similarly, this after the image is built, there's a bunch of stuff that gets done. For example, bring up the service of Postgres, bring up the MariaDB and all of those things. And then kind of run some, migrations and builds and things like that, etc. Right? So essentially, what this does is that, for example, if I were to go and create a code space, using this, right? The whole development environment will be up and running and ready for me without me having to set up all of those development environment up and running. All right. So I'll give you one other example. This is one of my side projects that I'm working on, which is based on Rails. For example, in my dev container, right? So what I'm really doing is I'm saying that, okay, I have a Docker Compose file that's already available, and just bring up the Docker Compose file as my development environment, all right? And after everything is created, just run the bootstrap, which does everything that's needed to have my dev environment ready, all right? And in my Docker Compose file, essentially, I'm defining all of my services, my MySQL services, and then just some username and passwords for my dev purposes, and kind of saying that, okay, just build this Docker file that is there, and then run this, all right? And similarly, I'm doing everything that's needed to kind of install all of the dependencies. For example, I just do an apt-get install of the node, and then I install all that's required for my Rails service and things like that. So I don't have to really make it harder for developers to kind of get started contributing in development, right? So right now, if I were to create, create a code space within, this project, within my project itself, I have multiple code spaces you can see which I work for on different branches and things like that. So if I just create a code space, on the main branch, there's some other customizations and everything else which I've done, which is why this will come up pretty fast, because I have pre-built some of these images, which is one other feature. So that way, the experience of bringing up a code space becomes much more faster for someone who is wanting to develop on that repo, or kind of contribute to that repo and things like that. So I'll just give you, I'll probably just give this another 10 more seconds for the code space to come up, and then show you that my whole development environment would be ready without me having to set up anything that's required, because if a project is already using the customizable environments in the dev container.json, which I mentioned to you, it takes away a whole lot of things that a developer has to do to kind of make this easier. So you can see that the image was downloaded, it's ready, and this is already synced to my VS Code as well. So, there's a whole lot of customization. You can already see I use a different theme with VS Code on my local, which has got synced up to the code space and things like that. So essentially, you can see it is running the Bootstrap script that that has to be done for the first time, which does a whole lot of things. So I'm gonna quickly show you that as well. I think it's here in script / Bootstrap. So it does just some Webpacker install and then kind of prepares the DB and things like that. So that's one other example of customizable environments where a maintainer or an owner of a project can make things easier by having all of the things that's required up and running, all right? So just as an example, if, and this is Rails specific, but it's applicable to any language, any framework, it's completely agnostic. I couldn't set up something similar for Laravel or Bagisto, which is why I'm giving you this example. Please excuse me on that part. But for example, if I have to just do, a very if I were to do kind of like an equivalent of PHP artisan serve, I would do something like bundle exec Rails serve, sorry, I think there is something. All right, I don't know why this is not yet working. I think I always get confused with all of the languages I'm working with, but don't know how to build tasks. Sorry, I have to quickly look up. I've been doing the PHP artisan serve. Oh, it's Rails server. Oh, sorry, that's what I thought. This is one of the things of being a polyglot. You're like, one time you're doing PHP artisan serve and then you try to do a Rails serve again, and then it's like, what the hell are you doing? This is just a code binding. And you can see, there is a server that's kind of like really up and running, and then you can see that there is automatically a forwarded port, all right, that gets forwarded to my local host, and there is a local address also that's there. Okay, so I can actually just open this one, and then it's going to kind of go ahead and bring up whatever is the home page for my application, right? So it's going to connect to the forwarded port, and there is the application which is up and running, all right? So that's just an example, right? So this, you're accessing the URL, but you can actually forward it. And the reason why this URL is coming up is only because I am forwarding it from the VS Code browser itself. If I actually open my own VS Code instance and then connect it, I can actually open it in localhost itself. All right. So that's just one other example of how easy it is, because here in the backend, what actually happened was because of my dev container.json and my Docker Compose and everything else, my whole development environment was ready as soon as I started my code space and have it ready to bring up the server as well, so that I don't really have to do any of the setup things. But if those customizable environments is not defined by the repo, you would have to still do some of those things yourself, but it could all be in the cloud as well. So that's a quick demo. Any questions so far? Okay, so I'm assuming there are no questions. Excuse me, the last and final part of my presentation. So let me bring up my screen. Okay. So the last part is that GitHub is being built using these same GitHub Codespaces itself, all right? So the code base of GitHub itself is, again, Rails monoliths, so it's a Ruby on Rails monolith with multiple microservices and different languages and things like that, but it's essentially a monolith and largely a monolith, all right? So the code base is almost more than 14 years old, and in fact, the first commit when was pushed for GitHub, right? So Rails was almost like probably 2 years old or something like that. So you can imagine that so far there has been kind of really a lot of development that has happened on GitHub itself, all right? And this is, what I'm sharing right now is a little bit story of how we use GitHub Codespaces to build GitHub and how we kind of really optimize our own development for all of the thousands of developers working within GitHub on GitHub itself, all right? So I'm going to take you through, the next 10 minutes, a little bit of the backstory on how we did this, all right? So when we looked at all of the commits of GitHub, right, and what we saw were that there were more than 1 million commits, and most of the commits, are from developers, that is from within GitHub, who were building and testing on macOS, all right? So this, presented with quite some various different challenges. We have a pattern internally which is called as scripts to rule them all. Now this pattern is, open source. So if you go to GitHub/scripts to rule them all, you will be able to find it. But essentially, the process for a developer to get started developing on GitHub used to look something like this, all right? Where someone has to do a git clone of GitHub/GitHub, which is the main monolith of GitHub. Please don't try to access it; you won't be able to access it. And then, after that, just like any other project, right? They would have to do like a CD to GitHub, and then script/bootstrap, which installs all of the dependencies that's there, and then script/setup, which is a single script which would do all of the setup that's required, migrations, bringing up all of the other dependent services and everything else, and then do like a script/server to start the main Rails monolith itself. All right. So what this used to happen was that it almost used to take like half a day's time for any engineer within GitHub to get all of these things done. The first time when I did this itself, it took me almost a whole day, all right? The cloning itself took a lot of time. I'm going to come to that. And then the rest of the things also took a lot of time. And often, not everything used to work out well. When you were running script/bootstrap, run into some dependency errors, script/setup some errors, script/server some errors and things like that. Although the scripts used to really open a new issue internally in case there's any trouble and we need any support. But we had like really one magic command called as nuke from orbit, which essentially used to clean the slate, wipe everything clean, and then start the whole thing from afresh because it was messed up. All right, it was not the ideal case, but GitHub Codespaces made it easier for us itself to develop GitHub. All right. So one interesting thing is that you might be wondering that, hey, why is it so complex? Why is it so complex, to do something? All right. And the insight I want to give you is that the code base itself is more than 13 GB on disk. Okay, so the repo, the code base itself is more than 13 GB on disk, and the Git cloning part itself used to take more than 20 minutes. Okay, on a really fast connection. So you can imagine how much time used to go in just that first step of doing like a Git clone to start developing, and then 13 GB of space on your disk. And next, for the bootstrapping, it used to take again 45 minutes, all right, or even more. So you do the first step of Git clone, which takes 20 minutes to half an hour, and then you do a bootstrap, which is gonna take again installing all of the dependencies, another 45 minutes to an hour, and things like that. It would mean that that's where easily you would spend half a day to get things up and running. All right. So which is where we started optimizing how things work, and kind of building that back within the product as well, so that everyone else can really start using it as well, right? And the first thing is, I probably mentioned to you early on as well, is behind the scenes is when the shallow clone that's being done, all right? The clone part is a shallow clone, it's not a full clone, so it doesn't bring you all of the commits and all of the branches and things like that. It just brings us a shallow clone, all right? So because of this, when we were using GitHub Codespaces to kind of build GitHub itself, because of this shallow clone, that 20 minutes was brought down to just 90 seconds, all right? Very, very fast. And often, all of us and all the developers and engineers within GitHub really didn't need to do the entire clone to develop something, right? So the shallow clone brought this to 90 seconds. So the cloning part was taken care of. The next part is the bootstrapping, installing the dependencies, right? A lot of dependencies. Now, again, what we realized is that, hey, these dependencies will remain, largely the same until a lot of the things are introduced. So ideally, this should be do once and then, distribute multiple times, rather than for every developer to kind of keep on installing it. And that's when we use something like GitHub Actions, which actually runs a nightly build to build and push a Docker image with all of the dependencies, all right? So that way, the cloning will be done by Codespaces automatically, and the container over here, which I mentioned to you about, will be the Docker image that we are using, which would have all of the dependencies of GitHub itself, right? So what this meant was that 45 minutes bootstrap time came down to almost 5 minutes, okay, which made it very, very faster. But our teams were very, very ambitious, all right? And they said, well, let's bring this down to 10 seconds. And it would be so great if this was brought to 10 seconds, okay? And this is when, we thought that, hey, how can we bring this down to 10 seconds? And I probably gave you a sneak peek about it already, is by using something called as pre-builds, all right? And the pre-builds essentially are kind of really pools of Codespaces, which are, really fully cloned and bootstrapped and ready, which essentially meant that anytime there was a commit to the main branch and things like that, the Docker image with the dependencies would be built, and then there would already be a Codespace that's almost kind of like ready and ready to be brought up, so that someone can just go and then, create a Codespace with all of the dependencies that's ready and then cloned and completely bootstrapped, right? And what this also meant was that we could configure the images also on the fly, as and when the application is growing. If we have to kind of really grow the machine behind it, it was just a matter of changing one small configuration within within our dev container.json, which said that, oh, you know what, I don't need the 16 GB memory one, give me the 64 GB memory one, all right? And that would automatically mean that I have a larger machine, all right? Interestingly, one of the consequences that came up, or a good consequences that came up because of using Codespaces for our development itself, is that we have something called as what we call as a review lab internally at GitHub, which is almost like a staging environment, but it's not like one staging environment, but it's almost like a staging environment that you can bring up on the fly for a PR and things like that, all right? And because of Codespaces, what we saw that many of our developers really stopped using this review lab itself, because they said that, you know what, there's a Codespace that's already up and running. I can just do like a Rails server over there and bring it up, rather than deploy my whole PR into a into a different environment and then check it out over there, all right? So very similar to how I said, the Codespaces itself almost started serving like a staging environment, for us, rather than having something very, very separate. And you know what? we were definitely able to bring this down to 10 seconds, all right? So, so right now, if I had to kind of really go and then start a code space to develop on GitHub/GitHub, whether if it's like a small PR or an entire feature, I'll have my development environment for something as big as GitHub/GitHub ready and up and running in 10 seconds. So I know this was a lot, but this was a story I wanted to share. There is a lot more to code spaces. Like how I mentioned, there is a lot of features that's there around customizing the container image, which I showed you a bit around devcontainer.json. There are a lot of security practices also that's possible that you can implement, access permissions that you can define as to the repositories that will be able to access, what you can do with the repositories and things like that. And you can do a lot of organization management within the org and things like that as well. So there's a whole ton of what you can do. But I just scratched the surface, to tell you more about how you can actually, use code spaces. So that's all, that I had on my end. If there are any questions, or any other comments, I would, love to hear them from you. So you can ask the question now, or you can find me on Twitter, LinkedIn, GitHub, pretty much anywhere at MV Karan. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. Any questions?
Can you hear me?
Okay, sir, you mentioned one question to me, how to manage community relevant code spaces. See, essentially, the fundamental aspect of code spaces is that it makes development and contribution very, very easy, right? What I would really encourage is that if you are a project owner or a maintainer or anyone or even an open source contributor, right, help giving back by having those customizable environments for the projects that you maintain or you contribute to, all right? Because what that would mean is that when a new contributor comes in, or even a very seasoned contributor who comes in and who's working on a different part of the project, they don't really have to spend a whole lot of time figuring out how to set up the development environment itself, but rather can focus on actually giving back, all right, and get things fast and up and running. So I think that's very, very important. Like I showed you right now, right? So if I have to really go and then contribute to say Rails/Rails, it's very, very easy for me today because they have the customizable environment that's already available. So I don't really have to worry about getting all of those things up and running, right? So similarly, I want to show you an example of how we do this for our own repositories and project itself. So let me again quickly share my screen how we do this for the GitHub docs itself, right? So I'm gonna show you. So this is the GitHub docs, which is again open source. And if you were to kind of go really into the contributing.md, right, and you really look at, okay, how do you get started? There are, of course, all of the ways, create an issue, make changes within the UI and all of those things, all right? There are a few things over here, and then there is also the development guide, which I believe, and then there is getting started, okay? Now, so for example, if you see, right, for contributing to GitHub docs itself, you would have to kind of clone it, do an npm CI, run build, run start, and then, do all of those things, all right? Whereas an alternative is simply you can just start, using GitHub Codespaces, all right? So if I were to really go make a contribution to GitHub Docs right now, all I would have to do is start and then, create a code space on main, and then just go to my contribution. That's all. I don't really have to worry about installing npm, cloning, doing npm CI, build, and all of those things. So this makes the experience for a new contributor or for anyone much more easier, because they can focus on really giving back to your project rather than like really worrying about all of the development environment setup and everything else. All right, so there is another question by Dheeraj, how pricing is going to be, instance cost for each code space or some other approach. So as of now, the pricing is like really on a per hour basis. So if you go into the GitHub docs itself, you can find the details of the pricing. There is billing for Codespaces. So there is a pricing that's there as of now for compute and storage and things like that. So for 2 core to 32 core, what is there? So all of that is there. So right now, those accounts which were already a part of the beta, the personal accounts are not currently built. But for organizations and enterprise accounts on GitHub Team and GitHub Enterprise, for them the billing is there. But if you were a part of the beta and then you were part of the waitlist and let into it, you wouldn't be billed as of now. So an example here is very similar to what GitHub Docs has. So I can really kind of get started contributing without having to worry about setting up a development environment. Okay, when are we looking for stable release? Okay, so when I say beta, right, it doesn't mean that the product is in beta. It means the availability of Codespaces is in beta. So the product is very stable. It is being used by organizations and enterprises. In fact, the very first release was for enterprises itself and teams and organizations. So it's still in kind of beta program for personal individual accounts. Whereas a lot of organizations and enterprises are already using it. So like how I said, we ourselves use it to build GitHub/GitHub day in and day out. Similarly, there are a whole lot of organizations who are also using it. So the product itself is stable. The availability for individuals is still in beta. Okay, next question is, what is the GitHub roadmap for Indian developer community? Any insights you can give? Okay, so the product of GitHub itself definitely has the public roadmap. I'm not sure if many of you have seen. So there is a public roadmap that's published, wherein you have the public roadmap, and then you can kind of take a look at what all is coming up and things like that. All right. So this is for the product itself, and when something like that is there, it's of course available for everyone in India as well. But one thing which I'm very excited to share is that I know this has been asked by a lot of people in the past. Is in the past couple of months ago, we actually made GitHub sponsors generally available for everyone in India. So if you go to github.com/sponsors, right, now people in India can accept sponsorships as well, and also kind of sponsored back. So if you go to look at all the available regions, India is also one of the supported regions. So this took quite a while, but we worked on it based on a lot of requests that are coming in. So if you are a GitHub user and contributor, and then you really want to accept sponsorships from other individuals from anywhere in the world, you will be able to do that, right now. So similarly, if there are things, that you think is something that you are looking for specifically for developers in India, etc., then please, go to our GitHub community discussions, and then, you can request for a feature or share input over there. Great. So thank you so much, for having me. Like how I said, I really wish, I could have joined all of you in person, but I'm gonna be there soon, hopefully for one of the upcoming meetups to meet you all in person. So thank you, Sarav and everyone else for inviting me and having me over. So I hope the session has been useful. If there are any questions, you can find me on @MV Karan anywhere. So thank you again for joining this, and back to you, Saurav.
Microphone mode. Microphone mode.
So that was a very wonderful talk by Karan on GitHub Codespaces. I guess most of you might have a look into that and try to use with the open source project.
Microphone mode.
The next and last talk we have of Mr. Ankush on the solid principles on Laravel. So we will have Ankush in just a few minutes.
माइक चल रहा है ना, आप उसमें बोलोगे तो आवाज़ जाएगी, ठीक है, लाइव में आवाज़ जाएगी।
अच्छा वैसे उसमें हेलो एवरीवन, my name is Ankush. I'm presenting on the solid principle in Laravel. So before starting, I have a few questions from the audience. So like at the time of development, like what type of issues or like challenges you have come with your code? Anyone you have? Dheeraj, Manpreet?
Like we can face solid principle issues if we want to.
No.
Just like if we want to make a good product, so there's a problem with the bulky of code. We can't understand like if we want to understand some code after 10 years. So that would be impossible for us. So if we make our code like bulky or you can say a huge code, we can simple words. So that could be a difficult for us.
So like you have any like particular reason like why or like code is bad, like why are you writing a bad code, or like what is the problem behind?
Because of not good. Because we are not doing code in good way, you can say.
Okay, like any
Like,
specification like
if you say if we want to make a API or CRUD, right? What we do, we put all code in controller. That's not good way. Like if we give him someone, if other person working with us, so I know what percentage of code in that particular controller. But if I give to some one person, then that would be impossible for that person to understand that code. So that kind of thing happens with everyone.
yeah, like one of the question is like one of the challenges, right? Like if someone is writing a code and after that is someone else is going to work on that project like with that code, so the challenge is like he won't able to understand that code. Okay, so yeah, so my presentation will be start from that your main issues. Why do programmer write a bad code? Okay, so little bit first में मैं so little bit I will change my language to Hindi. So yeah. तो मेन रीज़न क्या होता है कोई भी डेवलपर्स को बैड कोड लिखने का? नॉर्मली सबका एक कंसर्ट होता है कि मेरे को फटाफट कोड करना है एंड उस पर अपने कुछ काफ़ी सारे चीज़ें नहीं फॉलो करते हैं, बट हम अपना जो बैड कोड है उसको लिखने के बाद भी हमें पता है कि बैड कोड के बाद क्या चैलेंजेस होते हैं. सबके साथ होता है कि नॉर्मली हम जितना बैड कोड लिखेंगे उतना हमें वो हमारी कोडिंग को स्लो करेगा, क्योंकि जितने बग्स आएंगे हम उतने उस पर रिफ्रेशन करेंगे. तो हम अपना कोड लिखते हैं उस पर मतलब कोड लिखने से ज़्यादा हम कोड को पढ़ने में टाइम वेस्ट होता है हमारा. नॉर्मल कोई भी डेवलपर के चैलेंजेस है, करेक्ट. सो एक और सबसे ज़्यादा मेजर इशू होता है सबके साथ कि हम फॉर एग्जांपल एज अ ऑर्गेनाइजेशन या एज अ प्रोजेक्ट किसी का कोई प्रोजेक्ट आता है तो एक डेवलपर के माइंड पे होता है कि हमें फटाफट वो इम्प्लीमेंट करना है विदाउट एनी प्लानिंग और एक स्ट्रक्चरिंग के बिना हम करते हैं. तो उससे क्या होता है कि हम सेम वही कंसेप्ट करते हैं, कोड हमारा ढंग से डिवाइड नहीं होता और उस चीज़ पे हम उसको चैलेंजेस करते हैं कि फास्ट कोड करें, उस पर हम और कोड हमारा अपना गंदा करते जाते हैं. और सबसे ज़्यादा डेवलपर्स का चैलेंज है डेडलाइन की कैसे इशू होता है कि जिस पे कम टाइम के अंदर हमें क्वालिटी से कॉम्प्रोमाइज़ करना पड़ता है. तो ये तीन मेन चैलेंज है कि हम जो बैड कोड पे हम चैलेंजेस करते हैं जो डेवलपर्स करते हैं. एंड या सो सेकेंड मेरा ये रहेगा कि हम अपने जो बैड कोड है उसको कैसे हम डिटरमाइन करेंगे पर्टिकुलर बंदे की इस बंदे का बैड कोड है. सबसे पहले अगर कोई भी हम एप्लीकेशन का कोड ले रहे हैं उस कोड को खुद शो करने की एक्जैक्टली वर्क क्या कर रहे हैं. बट हम नॉर्मली एज ए रियल टाइम लाइफ में हम क्या करते हैं कि हमारा सबसे बड़ा चैलेंज यही होता है कि हम कोड को पढ़ने में ज़्यादा टाइम लगाते हैं एज़ कम्पेयर टू हम कोड को
इम्प्लीमेंट करने में। हमारे राइटिंग में कम टाइम ज़्यादा है एज कम्पेयर टू 90% हमारे जितने डेवलपर्स होते हैं अपना आधा से ज़्यादा टाइम हम कोड को पढ़ने और समझने में लगा देते हैं। सेकेंड, हमारा जो कोड होता है बहुत ज़्यादा रिजिड होता है, तो मतलब एक सबसे बैड कोड का सबसे बड़ा एक आइडेंटिफिकेशन है कि वो बहुत ज़्यादा रिजिड होता है, वेरी डिफिकल्ट टू चेंज और उसमें कुछ अपग्रेडेशन करने के लिए। एंड फ्रेजाइलिटी एक कंसेप्ट है, मतलब हमारे कोड में मैक्सिमम ये हमने सुना होगा कि हम एक पर्टिकुलर मॉडल या क्लास में हम चेंज कर रहे हैं, बट जब हम कोड उसको इम्प्लीमेंट या रन करते हैं तो टेस्ट केसेस बहुत सारे फेल होने लगते हैं और पता लगता है कि जो मॉडल से इसका कोई लेना देना नहीं, वो दूसरे मॉडल्स भी फ़र्क पड़ रहे हैं। तो वो उसमें क्या है, डिपेंडेंसी एंड उसमें काफ़ी सारी फ़र्क पड़ता है। एंड मतलब मेरा जो नेक्स्ट पॉइंट है, हमारी कपलिंग एंड डिपेंडेंसी में इफेक्ट पड़ता है। एंड सबसे ज़्यादा आज के टाइम पे जो डेवलपर्स कोड रियूजेबिलिटी पे बहुत ज़्यादा कम फोकस करते हैं। तो इस सब को फॉलो करने के लिए हमारे पास जो है ऊप्स में स्पेशली हम सॉलिड प्रिंसिपल के लिए इम्प्लीमेंट होते हैं, सॉलिड प्रिंसिपल्स को फॉलो करना चाहिए, जिससे हम अपना ज़्यादा फोकस काम करें एज ए डेवलपर कोडिंग करने पे, ना कि हमें कोड को पढ़ने में हम या उसको समझने में हमारा टाइम यूटिलाइज हो। तो हमारे सॉलिड प्रिंसिपल्स में हमारे जो डेफिनेशंस होती हैं तो SRP सिंगल रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी प्रिंसिपल्स, एंड ORC ओपन एंड क्लोज प्रिंसिपल्स, LSP सब्स्टिट्यूशन प्रिंसिपल, ISP इंटरफेस सेक्शन प्रिंसिपल, and DIP dependency inverse principle. Okay, so first of all मैं first principle से start करते हैं, हमारा SRP single responsibility principle. So well, as a for definition, a class should have a one and only one reason to change. तो एक्चुअली हम इसको एक्सप्लेन करें तो हमें अपनी क्लासेस को इतना ज़्यादा सेग्रेट करना चाहिए कि एक क्लास एक ही रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी की एक ही रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी हमें उसको रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी डिस्क्राइब करे जाए। फॉर एग्जांपल हम एक क्लास डिफाइन कर रहे हैं जिसके अंदर हमने एम्प्लॉयज़ के डेटा डाले हुए हैं, उनके आर्ली बेस डाले हुए हैं एंड उनके पे स्केल्स डाले हुए हैं। फॉर एग्जांपल हम उस क्लास में कुछ चेंजेस करते हैं, तो अब उसके साथ तीन चीज़ें हमारे तीन डिपार्टमेंट उससे अफेक्टेड हो रहे हैं। फॉर एग्जांपल एम्प्लॉयज़ का डेटाबेस, सेकेंड ऑपरेशंस वालों के लिए हमारे कितना उस एम्प्लॉयज़ के आलिस कितने वो इम्प्लीमेंट कर रहे हैं टीम के ऊपर एंड फाइनेंसेस के ऊपर। तो ये सारी चीज़ें को हम कैसे करेंगे, तो हम क्या है कि हम सेपरेट हर एक क्लास को सिंगल रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी देंगे, तो हम डिफरेंट क्लासेस को ब्रेक करके डालेंगे उसमें। सेकेंड, तो ओपन एंड क्लोज प्रिंसिपल। सो first of all, a class should be open and extends but closed for the modification. So हमारी एक definition में काफ़ी है। तो solid principle सेकंड हमारा एक फंडामेंटल यूज़ किया जाता है कि हमें कोई भी क्लास अगर हम डिस्क्राइब कर रहे हैं तो उसको इस तरह बनाएं कि एब्स्ट्रैक्शन क्लास के थ्रू कि हम उस पर मॉडिफिकेशन ना करें बट उसमें ऐड ऑन कर सकते हैं। फॉर एग्जांपल हम एक पेमेंट गेटवे का एग्जांपल लेते हैं। हमने एक ऐसी क्लास बनाई है जिसमें मल्टीपल गेटवे के ऑप्शन डाले हैं, जैसे फॉर एग्जांपल पेपाल, क्रेडिट कार्ड, नेट बैंकिंग। बट इन फ्यूचर पर्टिकुलर ऑर्गेनाइजेशन की डिमांड के हिसाब से वो अपडेशन होती रहती है, तो हम ये नहीं चाहेंगे कि हम बार बार हम उस क्लास में मॉडिफिकेशन करें। तो हमें अपने एप्लीकेशन को अपनी क्लासेस को इस तरह इंटरफेस इस तरह से मेंटेन करना चाहिए कि सो दैट ये सब हम इसको अलग अलग ऐड ऑन करने में ईजी रहे हमें, और हम उसको मॉडिफिकेशन ना करें। सो ये हमारा क्लोज एंड ओपन एंड क्लोज मॉडिफिकेशन के ऊपर है। एंड सेकेंड सब्स्टिट्यूशन प्रिंसिपल। सो इसमें इस प्रिंसिपल में मेनली ये होता है कि कई बार हमारी एप्लीकेशंस में क्या होता है कि हम डेवलपमेंट के टाइम पे कुछ फॉर एग्जांपल सबसे इजी एग्जांपल है हमारा, हमने एक डेटाबेस यूज़ कर रहे हैं, हम फॉर एग्जांपल हम अपने डेटाबेस बार बार चेंज करना चाहते हैं, तो हम ऐसा एप्लीकेशन नहीं बनाएंगे जिसके कारण हमारे यूजर्स को क्लासेस में चेंजेस होने का फ़र्क ना पड़े। तो इसमें सबसे एग्जांपल है मेरा डेटाबेस का ही है कि जिसमें इजी हम क्लासेस में अपने चेंजेस कर सकते हैं। जो कोई चेंजेस है तो यूजर्स को फ़र्क नहीं पड़ता कि हाँ कि आप किस चीज़ पे अपडेट कर रहे हो। एंड इंटरफेस सेग्रीगेशन प्रिंसिपल। So yeah, changing one method in a class should not affect the class on that dependence. So first of all, इंटरफेस इस पॉइंट्स में हमारे ये आता है कि हमें जो भी हमारे मेथड्स हैं या जो भी हमारे क्लासेस में हम अपग्रेडेशंस कर रहे हैं तो हमारे डिपेंडेंसीज में इफेक्ट नहीं होना चाहिए हमारे उसमें. एंड या लास्ट वन, डिपेंडेंसी इनवर्स. सो never depend on anything concerned, only depend on the abstraction. So it's mainly है कि हमारी जो कुछ dependencies होती हैं हम abstraction class के ऊपर रख के, ना कि हम एक classes को call कर सकते हैं. Thank you. Any question? That's it. Yeah, so this one, let's go. So इसमें क्या है, मैं एक सबसे एग्जांपल बताता हूँ. आपने एक क्लास बनाई है जिसमें आपने डक के बारे में मतलब एक डक के बारे में अपने डिस्क्रिप्शन दिया है जिसमें कि डक उड़ भी सकता है, नॉइज भी कर सकता है, स्विम भी कर सकता है. बट उसके बाद आपको एक और उसमें ऐड करना है प्लास्टिक डक. ठीक है, तो प्लास्टिक डक्स में भी आपके पास एक कंडीशन आती है. आप यूज़र को क्या, हमें ये नहीं डिस्क्राइब करना कि हमारी क्लास में वो चीज़ नहीं है, तो हमें इस तरह डिस्क्राइब करना है कि जो प्लास्टिक डक है उसकी फंक्शनलिटी हम उसमें अपनी क्लास में लग से विदाउट अफेक्टिंग करंट उसको इम्प्लीमेंट कर पाएंगे. तो ये एक्चुअली इसके ऊपर है. कुछ और एनी अदर क्वेश्चन?
कहते हैं कि बी क्लास है,
हाँ,
बी क्लास एक बार प्रिंट करती है.
हाँ,
बी क्लास में एक मेथड है फॉर एग्जांपल, और ए क्लास में कोई मेथड है. बी क्लास में जो एक्सेप्शन होती है ए क्लास में नहीं होती, तो क्या ये लिस्ट ऑफ सब्सिडी वो करेगा?
सॉरी, बी क्लास में
किसी पे से एक्सेप्शन फ्लो हो रही है,
हाँ,
एक्सेप्शन फ्लो हो रही है, ए क्लास में एक्सेप्शन फ्लो नहीं हो रही है, तो क्या ये लिस्ट ऑफ सब्सिडी प्रिंसिपल है?
ये उस पे नहीं है. Anything else?
That was a nice talk, Ankush. So that's all for today's meetup. Okay. So you all can stay. We can discuss a bit on like Laravel is happening next year. So we can discuss some topics on Laravel, like what all we are going to have and everything.
Connect again soon.
And you guys can have your food and beverage. Thank you.